everybody. Welcome to the Resistance broadcast. I'm John. Thank you for joining us on this Monday, September 12th, 2022. We are so close to Andor, 9 days away from the debut, 3-episode debut of the next iteration of live-action Star Wars. Pretty cool. And leading up to that, we had D23. So you're going to see two different looks of us on this episode. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening on audio, you won't tell a difference. But just so everyone understands, we're going to open the show here before Resistance Report by talking about our thoughts on what was talked about or shown at D23 this past weekend. And then we're going to go into Resistance Report and talk about all the other news that came out this past week. And honestly, a lot of that involves a lot of speculation on our part. So we have a loaded episode. So as always, I'm very glad that James and Lacey are here with me in the base. The crew is ready to go to talk about this. So let's just get after it right now and talk about D23. 3 trailers. We got the Mandalorian Season 3 teaser, front-loaded with a lot of stuff that we saw from Season 1, Season 2, dialogue-wise, maybe shot-wise. The final Andor trailer, which, in my opinion, it's at the point now where we're like, just give us the show. You know,
it's a lot of repeat clips, and
a lot of repeat stuff.
Yeah,
a lot of repeat stuff. Maybe a line or two here and there to maybe send us in one direction or another, or maybe a misdirection. Who knows? And then, of course, Tales of the Jedi, the trailer for the upcoming mini series, animated series, which is all popping at once on October 26th, all in one shot, 6 episodes, I believe. So that should be interesting, and I have some thoughts on that as well, and surprised in some aspects of that, and all the other stuff that came out. You know, the Bad Batch being delayed, and we're not going to harp on that too much. People are probably sounding the alarms, worrying about Bad Batch. I think Bad Batch is going to be just fine.
I think Disney's just reworking their calendar, to be honest. I don't think it's a production thing. I think it's
let's pop that in Q1.
Yeah, I think that's hey, we have so much going on. Why don't we spread it out to keep subscribers around?
But before we get into the trailers, because I feel like we'll do the trailers in one little block. The Ezra casting report that came out, and Cinelinx put that out first. Then all the trades jumped on top of it,
and then everybody else did. Yeah,
said they were confirming it and what have you. No official announcement from Lucasfilm or Disney at D23. So as of now, that is not an official casting. Even though some of the bigger entertainment trades out there said this is confirmed, it is not. But that word confirmed is used quite often, as is the word exclusive.
I'm okay with it, honestly, and I think he looks great. I think he's going to do probably an amazing job, because I'm
bummed for Taylor Gray.
I'm bummed for Taylor Gray because we interviewed him and he's delightful. We saw him at Celebration. We were just so excited to see him, and
he wanted to do it.
Yeah, and he was so into it. I think also I'm very kind of disappointed for Mina, because he put out this tweet that was like, finally, the truth is out. I did a self-record. That I felt bad for him, to be honest, because to me, it was kind of like a bittersweet disappointment tweet. And I know it was done in good faith, but for me, I was just like, oh, I feel so bad for him. And I would have said the same thing if Taylor put something out, which Taylor said nothing, I believe. He didn't say anything, but...
No, he's not very active on social media as it is. But James, so Iman Esfandi reportedly cast as Ezra. Very interesting. Yeah, I'll quickly on the Mina Massoud thing. I mean, that was reported back in the day, and it just kind of caught fire.
And Ash Cross in email interviewed him about it.
Asked him about it. There was the whole like Space Aladdin thing, and I could be wrong, but that might have took him out of the running. The fact that there were just so many jokes about how he played Aladdin and Ezra's Space Aladdin, and I don't know if that's the case or not. But anyway, according to all these reports, Iman Esfandi is going to be Ezra. So James, biggest Rebels fan in the house. If that is true, what are your thoughts? I'm sure you don't know too much about this actor. It was probably done on purpose to cast somebody who, when you look at them, you're not like, that's the live action Aladdin from Disney. Nope, that's Ezra. So
I can see that.
What are your thoughts on this guy's look? What are your thoughts on this report? Do you buy it? And let's kick it off there, I guess.
Well, I mean, immediately when I see him, I think he's actually, and it's hard to tell because Ezra is such a, I mean, he has distinct features, obviously, but it's like such a basic 3D model of a character. But yet still I was like, I feel like he's the person that looks the most like Ezra out of
Mhm.
anybody.
I agree.
Right. Agreed.
Yeah.
So that was like my first thought, and I was like, okay, well, if this is in fact the person, then he probably. You always gotta know that no matter how much you hope somebody gets it, this was probably the best choice because casting went to this person, despite the fact that they don't have a big. I mean, he's got a following, but he doesn't have what we've talked about before, like other.
He
big,
has a
big properties
following
and stuff.
as people that like his movies, but his social following, he literally set up his Twitter account when this news broke.
Yeah.
It like just been set up.
So, and I was going to say a couple things like that was one clue that maybe this report is in fact accurate. Other reports were other fan castings like Mina, like not Dev Patel, but I can't think of his name.
The guy from iZombie, I'm blanking on his
name. Raul
yeah,
Coley.
Raul Coley, yeah. He also came out and was like, "Oh, fun run, whatever." Like, congrats to the winner kind of thing. And I was like, okay, so if those people, I know they're probably just reading the headlines, but sometimes you kind of think if they did try out or if they didn't get it or something like that, then they kind of know and they would know when to like stop, So it
maybe
seemed
it's so
like
people stop bothering them about it, to be honest.
Yeah, I know, but it did sort of feel like I was looking at it like we said, I was like, well, this isn't official. This is not an official thing. And then everybody who was had been playing in that realm for a while started coming out and being like, congrats to the winner. And I was like, okay, so I don't know. They seem to know something that I don't. So, all right. So I'm gonna let it go. I mean, he looks good, and I hope
that's a great
it's
point.
gonna be great.
I don't know if those other actors would come out and say congrats to the winner or whatever, because you have to imagine. I've never auditioned for anything, but you have to imagine that they ask, well, I didn't get, well, who got it? And their agent says, oh, it was blank. So it makes me think that they saw the report and were like, oh, it's out there. All right. Hey, congrats to.
But also,
I knew about this for months.
I don't want to shoot myself in the foot, but didn't also Rosario Dawson like congratulate Mina Massoud when the news broke?
She shared a post about something.
I know, but
she did confirm
that was
Anakin being
evidence.
Ahsoka. She did confirm that.
I think James, that's different than someone who went for that part.
Yeah, that's true.
Not getting it.
That's true.
So and Rosario Dawson, we've seen her just like fire off. So
yeah.
It helped her get the Ahsoka role by the Boss Logic fan art.
Absolutely.
So we got the Ezra casting, so that'll be interesting. I'm eager to. I want to find something he's been in that's accessible for me to watch. I'm gonna check this guy out, see what he's all about.
He's got a new movie coming out, I think.
Because and there may be some stuff that's available online that he's already done, but there are certain patterns that actors have and things that they're the trademarks of their style and stuff. So I'm curious how that fits into Ezra, or if they need to have him shift how he sort of operates. But so we have that. Any thoughts? Did you guys both watch the Obi-Wan behind the scenes thing?
I have not yet.
I haven't either, man. It's such a slammed weekend, and I didn't know when I was going to get to it. I saw that it was an hour long, and I was
we
like,
can talk about that.
I just want to sit down and watch that, and I can't.
Yeah.
I don't want to watch it in bits and pieces.
The only thing I'll say about it is, it wasn't as in depth as I was looking for. But the stuff that they did hit on, like the emotional beats of the return of Hayden and Ewan, and seeing that Ewan stayed on set even though he was done for the day for Hayden's first shot, and they hug, like that stuff's big. And seeing they actually did a part at the end about celebration and that sort of thing. So it was really nicely done. It was very, it felt good. It felt like a redemption for Hayden Christensen. You saw a lot of the passion involved in how they made this thing. And the one thing that surprised me the most is there were more actual physical sets constructed than I had thought in watching the show.
Okay, cool.
So check it out. And we'll revisit that. There was a lot to get, we all have families and there's a lot going on these weekends and stuff. So we'll get into that on a later episode. We'll definitely give you all our full thoughts on that.
I went to Michigan. I was like, I don't have time to watch this.
There you go. Yeah. The other thing, we talked about just before we started recording, Mandalorian and Grogu coming to Galaxy's Edge Disneyland. Pretty cool. So does that mean, are they officially eliminating the timeline of Galaxy's Edge, or are they shifting it back to this era and pulling it away from the sequel trilogy?
I think they're just putting him in the land to put him in the land. I don't think this is a canon.
So they're pulling back the curtain. They're like reeling in the canon element of Galaxy's Edge a little.
I'm gonna be completely honest, John. I didn't even think about the canon ramifications.
Really? That's all I think about with Galaxy's Edge.
I literally just went, "Oh, cool! He's walking around. Oh my god, the thing moves. It's an animatronic in the bag. That is so cool. I wonder who's controlling it. It's probably him. It's so neat." That's what I thought of because I don't know. There's a little bit of separation for me with the like, oh, this is canon, this is person walking around.
I think that's how it should be.
I get it. I totally get that you're like, how does Kylo and Mando walk around the same location? But from my understanding is they have like little kind of like territories that they walk around. So like Mando won't cross over into sequel trilogy territory, and same with Boba Fett. But then if you go past a certain doorway, then you're in Kylo Ren land, Stormtrooper land.
Yeah, it's sort of that's what I was gonna say. We sort of got our first hint at this when they announced Boba Fett and Fennec Shand. We're gonna
during
be
Celebration,
and we were like, okay, that's weird. How are they gonna do that? And that's what they said, is that they were only gonna be in certain areas. So when you're in that area, you can kind of understand it as. And I imagine this will probably be the case for many years, is that they've realized that certain segments don't necessarily scream sequel trilogy. So over there can still be Batuu, can still be Galaxy's Edge, but potentially this could be Batuu from
it's
this
like you're
era.
time traveling.
Yeah, it's sort of a loosey-goosey area. So you could see Boba Fett went to Batuu at one point, and now you're going to be able to see him there. But anything that's like permanent structure, then that's
eat
stuck.
it in the sequel trilogy, but then say, hey, I want to finish it before in Galactic Empire period.
The tough spots are going to be the big First Order area and the Millennium Falcon. I think that, I mean, if right off the top of my head,
you won't see Mando and Boba Fett
over
in front of the Millennium Falcon,
where the X-wings are and stuff like that, because they wouldn't be able to put
where I think Mando with his bag walks through like the shop area. Because that's the picture they released, was him walking through the shop area with the lanterns and everything. I think he's specifically in that shopping area.
My only thought on that
he says he's looking for someone in Oga's Cantina. So
maybe he's over there too. Cool.
Well, but that would be near the Falcon. But then again, what I could see them doing is that he enters Oga's Cantina. And he inside the building
and just turns around.
No, like he comes in a back door to enter the cantina. I could see that happening. He comes
and
through
he's
the back
in the
door.
cantina, and you're like, "Whoa, there he is!" But then,
I think this is great. I don't care about the theme park being canon at all. I think it makes so much sense to have your current most popular characters be present, especially you have a character that can wear a helmet like Kylo Ren. They can have the Pedro Pascal voice or something like it, and there's Mando.
They definitely have the Pedro voice that just plays. Which
it's gonna be the Kylo Ren
with the fingers and the gloves is what phrase they play. It's
right,
cool.
Right, and it's like I like that they have Rey and stuff like that, but it's like, well, I can see with my eyes that's not.
I can hear with my ears that it's someone doing a terrible British accent.
Even Chewie, you're like, that doesn't. But the Mando stuff, you're like, that's Mando and Grogu, dude. They're right there. That's them. And so anytime they can get a mass character or a popular droid or something, get them in those parks, man. That's way more immersive than you telling me that I'm in canon timeline of 30 ABY or whatever.
I gotcha.
Bring them in.
But
bring them in.
Why not Disney World? I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around why only Disneyland only.
Well, before we recorded, Lacey alluded to the fact that maybe they do test runs or something.
That's what I think it is, because they do test runs of stuff with, like the calf with Cocoa Puffs on it, like the really good coffee that everybody loves from Disneyland. It is. They just went to Disney World with that, like, I don't know, right after Celebration.
The only thing...
Are you telling me the morning Ronto wrap was at Disneyland first?
Probably. They try everything there.
At Disney Park.
The only thing I can think for test run, though, is to see like what the character's popularity among other people are. I'd imagine there's less people at Disneyland than Disney World.
You gotta imagine Grogu gets mobbed.
Oh yeah, that guy's getting mobbed. Yeah.
But like test run usually to me sees like, does this sell, or whatever, and I'm like, well, it's gonna be.
I don't even think it's
successful.
that. It could be that they're testing the animatronic in the environment outside.
I know. I'm saying, I guess that's fair. Yeah, I guess
seeing
that's
if
fair.
it malfunctions,
And if
can
you-
you carry
and
the thing
that's
for a
does
long
it work?
time?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And if you're an adult and you're at Disneyland, maybe you had a little spotchka. If there's kids around Grogu, give them the space. Okay?
Oh my god,
That's
nothing
what he's
makes me
for.
laugh more when I see influencers like standing in front of kids, like taking pictures
Oh
with
my
stormtroopers
god!
and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. You just sit back, zoom in with your camera, and take your photo.
Child meet
Let
the
the kids
character first.
experience who this person they think is real in front of them. Okay, but all right. So what else we got? Well, we get to the Bad Batch is delayed. Do you have
Well, are
any
we gonna talk
opinions
about the
on that?
Mando trailer at all?
Well,
We're gonna
yeah.
get into the trailers in a minute.
Okay.
Yeah. But the Bad Batch being delayed, I have no opinion on that. I think it was just like a schedule
scheduling,
thing.
yeah.
Andor got pushed, so maybe they pushed that. Do you guys have any thoughts on that? They didn't want to wrap it around the holidays.
I think it's
you know.
scheduling. I think they pushed back Andor. They have so much going on, getting into the holidays,
Yeah.
like you just said. I think they're just like, let's save this for the new year, keep subscribers around. Nothing's
Right.
gonna hurt it by pushing it back.
Yeah. You guys are probably right. I don't know. There's not. You don't normally want things to
I
drop
feel
in
sad because I know
January.
James was looking forward to it because he's doing.
Well, it's not that
you're
I'm
doing
looking
thing, but-
forward to it and it got pushed back. That's not the problem. Is I don't understand.
I said that's part of it.
Yeah, I don't understand how it just seems to be so mishandled. Like it seems like they don't know what they're doing with it, and like we keep seeing this Disney plus, like they post this image or whatever, and it says it's coming in September, and then this other thing says this, and this other thing says this, and then it's back to fall, and then it's coming soon. And then it's like what's happening with it? Why is this such an issue? And you're saying
think it's 'cause
scheduling.
streaming, they can push stuff around, whereas when it was on TV originally, like when stuff is on TV, it has to be scheduled for sponsorships and money and commercials. Whereas this, people are paying for it up front.
Is this happening with anything else though?
They push stuff around all the time, and unlike all the streaming services, they push stuff around.
I mean,
without
they
telling you.
delayed Skywalker saga movies. I mean, that it happens.
Yeah.
All right. So in terms of the trailers, I'm thinking let's just go in. What are we going to see first? So Andor, then Tales of the Jedi, then Mandalorian.
Before
That's
we
how
even
I
get there,
think
though,
it.
there's new images of Ahsoka and new images of Skeleton Crew.
Oh, and yes. Okay. Yeah, we can knock those out.
The images of Ahsoka, I don't feel like add a whole lot. They kind of felt like things we'd already seen.
The mural.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there was the mural where it's kind of cool because now you see the back shot, but then again, it was
Mhm.
also just sort of like a lighting test or something. It wasn't like from the show.
Yeah, it was
So
behind the
who
scenes.
in the Star Wars galaxy told a biographically accurate version in animation of what happened to the Ghost Crew? That's what I want to know. Because that's what we watched with Rebels.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Little meta joke. But
and then
yeah, they
Skeleton
look cool.
Crew.
Skeleton Crew, Jude Law looked like Jude Law, man. I think,
He
like,
does
they're
look
just
like Jude Law.
Let's just roll him out of his trailer and put a jacket on him, and
He's handsome,
action.
so I'll take it.
He is. Somehow he started balding 21 years ago, and it just stopped. It's like Bill Murray. I don't know what happened, but good for him. But he is a good actor, and I'm eager to see what he brings to the table in that series.
We have a little bit of I mean, it's still speculation, but when I look at that image, I now go, oh, well, he's like the hero, or he's like a main character. He's the good guy. Like we had speculated it was the kids versus maybe an evil Jude
Guy.
Law,
Yeah.
something. But looking at this image, I go, okay, he's the captain of the ship and all these kids are with him, which you can see in the image. They're all behind him too. So there's like 4 kids or maybe 5 or 6 if there's any behind him, but 4 visible. One on the right looks like an alien kid.
Yeah.
I mean, I might be wrong on that, but and then obviously the like Jabba the Hutt. It was in Mandalorian too, like the things coming out, they're like passcodes. So it looks like he's standing like right next to a
The
ship.
thing that like looks for the password, like rah, 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 the knocker.
Tajua Blinky.
thing.
Yeah, which
Whatever
are
it
also
is.
in Mandalorian. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
they are in Mandalorian. Yeah.
TTYL or whatever. You got to imagine that he is either, like you said, James, with them or he's like a con artist and he's gonna like get them in and then screw them over or something like that. You never know in Star Wars.
Sure.
Because like a DJ,
Mm-hmm.
But he's got his big scarf, he's got his little leather jacket there, and
Yeah, the
it's
kid on
just
the left
Jude Law.
looks like he or she's got like a Han Solo-ish outfit on.
A vest.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're right. That one alien on the right looks familiar. I can't pinpoint it. I don't know if they have
Yeah, it just kind of looks like a
to-
blue alien.
Togruta
It's
tails or
hard to
whatever.
tell.
Yeah, hard to tell, but should be interesting. I'm eager to find out what they end up doing with that because it does everything that they're pitching with it, and of course they got John Watts. I get that name right?
From
The big guy
Spider-Man.
from
Yeah.
Spider-Man.
And Favreau at D23 said he cast John Watts because of Spider-Man.
Not cast, but brought him in.
Well,
yeah.
you brought him in, yeah.
Yeah, and so the very coming of age vibes, and I think that's always good for a Star Wars story. So
They should just
excited
make
to learn more about that.
Jon Favreau head of television at this point because he's bringing in all these people. He's writing all these stories. He's
got
overseeing.
his casting director. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, it's because it's how much did he have to do with Obi-Wan though? Because as we're getting into like Acolyte as well.
Not Obi-Wan. He didn't. His team wasn't involved with Obi-Wan.
That's
yeah,
what
I'm
I'm
talking
saying,
the
it's
new
like-
stuff though.
So anything connected with the Mandoverse, he's a part of.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if I
But like they
Correct me if
brought
I'm
him out
wrong.
on stage when they brought Mando out, who's going to be in Disneyland Park. They brought Jon Favreau out to talk about
Mhm.
it.
But they confirmed that Skeleton Crew takes place post Galactic Civil War, right? So this is
Return of the Jedi, I think.
Yeah, no, this is all this. This is Filoni and everybody.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, that works. I mean, it's interesting. It is very interesting.
I was just thinking
and-
Obi-Wan and Acolyte being the two that seem very clearly not part of that at all.
Yeah, that's true. No mention of movies, by the way, before we get into the trailers.
Oh my
Not
gosh,
even,
not one.
not even Taika's
mention.
movie.
Nothing.
And Puck News reported that they said you're not going to get a word about the future of Star Wars movies. So
No
credit
Acolyte.
to them. Yeah.
Kind of
So
crazy.
Matt Bellany and the team over there, making a legitimate name for themselves. I know a lot. It doesn't roll off the tongue, Puck News, but they've gotten a few things right about what's going on over there. And he's the former editor of the Hollywood Reporter, and he has a great podcast, and he really has a lot of ears to the ground around him about what's going on. And so that's certainly a group to follow. Trailers, or is there anything else that I missed?
Oh, sorry, they
Nope.
did talk about movie Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
Well, of course, yes, Indiana Jones, which they showed the trailer or footage for, and did not go public. And
Yeah.
That's fine. But
Willow trailer
Buzz-
did go
Buzz-
public. Saw that. Looked
Yeah.
cool.
Buzz from Indiana Jones. Everyone said they liked what they saw. So,
Nice.
let's see. But yeah. So to start with the Andor trailer, I don't have too many takeaways from that one. It does seem that they are focusing heavily on Luthen sort of being the voice to convince people to take the leap.
Yeah.
So even Mon Mothma, he's telling her, and she's saying, "Well, there's going to be so many, losses," and he's like, "We have to do this."
That whole segment though is super tricky because she's talking to like 3 different people in that clip.
Mm,
Like
mhm.
it cuts from her
Yeah.
talking to him, then it cuts to her talking to someone else, and then it cuts to him not even in the same room with her, different background going everything. So if you're
Yes, yeah.
watching it, you're like,
Yeah.
oh, he's telling her everything's online. And I'm like, she just told 2 different people, 2 different quotes, and then he yelled at someone else.
I agree.
It's like I think we should walk the war. Like,
Yeah.
Which again,
Well,
it's for dramatic effect. I get
Yeah.
it, but
Yeah,
as someone
yeah.
who edits videos, I'm watching it and I'm like, this isn't even close to tricking people. It's very
there,
straightforward.
there was some cool
Yeah.
edits too, because there was one where somebody was like, I forget, there was a line, and then Saul comes in and he goes, "Call it what you want. Let's call it war," or whatever.
Yeah.
And then like in a I think it was Luthen, and then that was the conversation back and forth, like in the real actual clip, I'm assuming. And then this later trailer, they just used "Let's call it war" like
Mhm.
in reference, and it sounds like they're having a conversation, but it wasn't at all.
Yeah.
It did seem like, I don't think there's any misdirection here in terms of like, oh, is he really saying that or anything. I think they did a sort of montage, so to speak, to let everyone know like this is what this
yeah,
guy's
it's building
all
the
about.
tension. Yeah.
You're going to meet him immediately in the series. We want you to understand what this guy's motive is. And
it just made me laugh because usually they do it so that it looks like, so an example would be Last Jedi. At the end of Last Jedi, it looks like Rey's talking to Kylo Ren, but she's clearly not, but like the coloring is the same, so you could pass it off.
Mm-hmm.
This is like so blatantly in different locations that I'm like,
yeah. We were watching
quotes.
We were watching a whole bunch of the Disney stuff coming out, all the different trailers and things, and I saw a new Andor trailer, and I was like, cool. So I put it on, and I was like, Andor. Everything. I know all this, This wasn't anything special. I do want to ask you guys though, did you get a chance to see the other clip? I don't think we talked about this.
Was it the one from the movie? The Rogue movie?
No, it's the clip of him
on Disney
looking
Plus?
like
No,
not that one either.
Oh.
It's the one where he's talking to the one guy and then there's an alien like behind him.
Oh, yes.
And
yes,
they
yes.
corner him and he's like, "Are you threatening me?" And he's like, "Who put you up to this?" Did you?
Oh,
yeah,
yes.
I saw that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Again, I think I was looking sort of like for general reactions on the clip. Like I think I was looking at the comments and maybe a couple Twitter things. But it felt overall positive when it came to that clip because I think people were saying, "Wow, the alien feels real," and it felt like they weren't like saying, stick an alien in there or something like that. It all felt like it was an actual conversation. Felt very Star Warsy. And that
it wasn't there
good,
to say, "Hey, look
forth.
at the alien." The alien actually had a part.
Yeah. It felt like a Star Wars movie and less like a Star Wars TV show. Which Star Wars TV show generally the aliens seem more human and just with like facial things
more jokey
different
too.
Mm-hmm. And this felt like straight out of like one of the movies or something.
It felt like there was the first glimpse of humor in Andor.
Yeah.
So I think that's important because anytime people talk about Rogue One, they talk about just how gritty and real and how much of a war and spy movie it is, but it has its share of humor too. It's not the funniest Star Wars movie, but it has plenty of humor in it, and we hadn't seen any of that in Andor in any of the clips, in any of the publicity or promotions. It was like, this is the serious time right now.
They're even doing the Born Legacy director in the call out now. Like they're like spy, drama, spy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. Yeah. They want to hammer that home. I mean, they could even just, if they wanted to, but I don't know if they would, is just say like, this is the guy he's the reason why you probably really love Rogue One more than you really like Rogue One.
I did have to laugh though, because first of all, I love the music in this trailer because it's so intense and everything with the Star Wars theme is beautiful. But I always laugh because the new thing, all these trailers kind of have a formula, is if they want to drum up the tension, I just imagine the composer pulling out a child's piano and just being like, ding, 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 ding. And then they're like, da, 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 da.
The single note.
Yeah.
Was this the one that had is it this or the Mando trailer that did the wow? The Christopher Nolan trailer stuff.
Every trailer is like ding, 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 ding. And then it's like, do you know what's on the line? Da, 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 explosion.
Jurassic World did that recently. Yeah, that's the new thing now.
And it's always John Williams music that they're like, let's make it a John Williams, but intense. Ding, 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 ding.
You bring up a good point because they used the Force theme. It wasn't the Star Wars theme. It was the Force theme.
Right.
And I always affiliated that with the Force, of course, and Jedi. And this show has none of that in it.
Or does
so I thought that was an interesting choice that they used the Force theme for Andor.
It was weird.
What theme would they have used?
I would say none, but they want familiarity. And I understand, aside from the excellent usage of the main Star Wars theme in the Rise of Skywalker trailer, which they put it in a different key and made it sound emotional. It's a very uplifting, fun theme, and that wouldn't have fit this series. And there's varying ways that they have used the Force theme in so many trailers, so many previews, so many promotions, so many panels and stuff, that is a very dramatic theme. So I understand why that's a go-to.
One kind of surprise here, though, is that they didn't use any of the Rogue Ones. I haven't heard any of the Rogue One music.
It is interesting.
I don't think Giacchino's involved at all, and I wonder if that's a thing in his contract.
Well, I don't think Williams is involved. You know, but I bet like there's licensing that to some degree, like somebody.
But remember
owns
our
something.
conversations with Natalie Holt about Obi-Wan, and
I agree.
Williams had to sign off on some stuff.
Yeah, and I agree.
What was it,
So that's
after
why,
episode 4? He hadn't signed off yet? Yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I think that stuff is very case by case basis.
I mean, but it would be nice instead of the Force theme or whatever, which is what you're saying is like irrelevant, but to hear, you know, the dun 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 dun.
Yeah,
you know? Maybe people don't recognize it as much, and they're like, "Well, we'll stick the Force theme in there. Everybody knows that one," you know.
Or does the music for Rogue One fit Rogue One because that's that point in the story, and this 5 years ago,
and the Force theme is just always like
it's forever.
It's supposed to be forever. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, because they use that in the prequels, but and maybe in trailers versus shows, they have autonomy to use stuff versus like, you know, in Obi-Wan they had to get, you know, the blessing of, you know, John Williams, and by blessing maybe it's even allowances. I don't know.
Can we get into the Mando trailer?
So
Tales of the Jedi.
Well, yeah, Tales of the Jedi. Which I have thought
biting at the jump,
dying for this Mando trailer. But that'll be our final. That'll be the grand finale to get us out of here. So we're gonna talk Tales of the Jedi first, since that's the next one, and then Mando's coming in February. But Tales of the Jedi. Do you have any initial thoughts on this? What was your earliest reactions out of the gate on watching this, and did you watch it more than once?
I loved it.
Where you at? Yeah,
I definitely watched it more than once, which is surprising to me because it wasn't the thing that I was the most interested in, obviously. But I really liked it, and I thought Ahsoka was adorable as a baby, which everybody saw this trailer back at Celebration or something like this, First Glimpse or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting. I can't wait to see where it goes, but I think it answers that question which we had a while ago, which Matt Lanter put out a tweet that he was being Anakin again, and we all were like, what does that mean? This is what that means. He did Anakin for this short. But yeah, no, it looks great. I think it's going to be super emotional. They threw all the stuff like, this is done by the Clone Wars and Bad Batch and everything else. So
co-created by Dave Filoni.
It's gonna be good.
Yeah, James. Biggest takeaways from this one?
So I'm trying to kind of piece it together too, because they say it's 6 shorts, right? Do we know if they are dropping them all at once?
Yes,
all at once.
They are dropping all at once. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought that, but then I saw something that made me think maybe that wasn't gonna happen. Okay, so all at once, and then it's six stories, but it's really only, or it's 6 episodes, but it's really only 2 stories, right? It's 3 episodes of Count Dooku, 3 episodes of Ahsoka, right?
Yeah.
Now, do we know if there's any sort of connection between the two? Like if it's like 3 stories that focus on Count Dooku, which lead into then the birth of Ahsoka?
We don't.
Like if you could kind of look at it as 3 or 6 episodes.
I thought it was supposed to be every episode's a different Jedi. That was my takeaway, but I might be wrong.
So the premise says each episode of Tales of the Jedi tells a short story featuring Jedi from the prequel trilogy era. The 6 episodes are split into 2 paths. The first following Ahsoka, the second Count Dooku.
Okay, there's your answer.
Okay.
Yeah, and the first episode's called Life and Death, and it's about Ahsoka's birth.
Wait, I'm still confused.
There's 6 episodes, but 2 different paths, to the dark side, to the light side, with Ahsoka and Dooku.
Yeah.
So there's 3 per Ahsoka, 3 for Dooku.
And who they encounter in that path. So you're gonna have Mace Windu and Qui-Gon with Dooku's journey.
And that guy that got killed in Obi-Wan Kenobi, but then frozen in the amber thing. He was there too. What was his name? Blanking.
Frozen in the amber.
Yeah.
I'm blanking.
The old.
Yes.
Yeah.
What is his name?
His cane is a lightsaber.
Yes. He's standing
it's
there.
like Tensu.
Oh my god! The people listening are like,
I know.
Tara Sanu.
Yes. Yes. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and the cast is interesting. Corey Burton is voicing Count Dooku, and I saw this online after I watched it, and I agree. He sounds a lot like Alan Rickman.
He does,
and it really does sound like Corey Burton's. Now I'm forgetting the name. character that just died in Book of Boba Fett.
Cad Bane.
Cad Bane.
Oh my God, it's been a weekend, guys.
Yeah,
it has been a weekend.
Luke
Sky. Oh.
So do me a favor. Rewatch the Tales of the Jedi trailer, and when Count Dooku's talking, think of Cad Bane, and you'll be like, yeah, that's Cad Bane.
I hear that. I get it. Yeah.
I like that you said Alan Rickman too, because Baze to me always has the Alan Rickman line. The seems awful late to me in Rogue One. Every time it sounds exactly like Alan Rickman.
The Inquisitor too. I don't know if that was the right matchup with the audio and the visual, but the subtitle said this was the Inquisitor talking. The Inquisitor sounds like Corey Burton also. So I don't know if they do that a lot with animation, where they get people to do.
You don't say D. Bradley Baker.
Who's back as Rex? Yeah, but Janina Gavankar is apparently playing Ahsoka's mother, so I thought that was interesting.
Oh yeah.
And Liam Neeson is at least according to what I'm seeing here is doing adult Qui-Gon Jinn, which isn't a stretch because he did it for the Clone Wars. But there is a different actor doing a young Qui-Gon Jinn, which is pretty cool. And then
out of the
no Samuel L. Jackson for Mace Windu. It's Terrence Carson. I don't know if he had previously done Samuel Jackson. I don't
Interesting.
know.
I would have taken Samuel L. Jackson for doing it.
Well, no, but it's probably the actor from the Clone Wars. Because Samuel
Jackson did voice him for the movie The Clone Wars, but then the series
maybe they couldn't afford him.
Yeah, and then Matt Lanter is back, as you said, Lacey, and Ashley Eckstein,
which is great.
Ahsoka,
Good for
which
her.
is great to hear. And they have Yaddle in this.
Yeah.
So does George Lucas know that?
They literally have just started going down his do not use list.
Filoni must have run it by him though, because if Filoni co-created this and he's popping Yaddle in here,
who did you say was doing Mace Windu? Terrence C. Carson.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the voice from Clone Wars.
Okay, so. That's cool.
So Filoni must have, because when he made the announcement that Clone Wars was coming back at San Diego, because I was in the room for that announcement, he had mentioned with a sketch on the screen, a sketch of Yaddle and how George was like, I don't talk about Yaddle. Stop talking about Yaddle. So know Dave ran something by George.
Yaddle.
Yeah, basically.
Right.
No.
Yaddle.
I by the way, like, I love Ahsoka, but the Dooku stuff is way more interesting to me.
I completely agree.
Yeah, like I'm cool seeing this and seeing like her birth origin and all that. That's neat. That's bonus. But to me, if I'd almost be more excited if he told me it was 6 episodes of Count Dooku. I'd be like,
it's so funny.
Yes, that sounds awesome.
I'm more hyped for the Ahsoka stuff, especially
really?
Wow. Especially because they have the clip with Anakin where he's like, I'm just going to teach you to survive. Because I feel like oftentimes people are like, oh, Ahsoka's so good. She never gets hurt. And I'm like, here she is getting trained by Anakin, which we already knew, but like even more intense. That like, you're going to really understand.
The simulation.
Yeah.
So, what's interesting too, I saw this online, how fans do, but there was a very specific clip of, I'm going to train you how to live, right? And in this trailer, Tales of the Jedi, she does like this jump up, spin around, and then when she lands, she gets hit by a stun. And then they paired it up with, in the Clone Wars Season 7, she does the same move, but when she lands, she turns around and swipes the bolt away.
Right. So, because I feel like people are so quick with Ahsoka and a lot of other characters to just be like, how did they know how to do that? How are they so good? And I'm like, here you go. Here's how. This is how she got so good.
It does seem, and I don't have many more thoughts on it. I think it looks great, and I'm surprised that Filoni's involved, because I thought he's been fully moved on from animation. I still think he is. I think this is maybe a one-off.
I think it's because Ahsoka's involved.
I think he created
Filoni,
it, but
can you jump on Zoom from 1 to 3?
I don't, because it doesn't say who wrote it or anything. So I think he created the idea, but it's like when you see a Star Wars new
it's a
movie
John
credit,
Knoll Rogue One moment,
and it says based on stories created by George Lucas. Yeah, and this does say that too, of course. But the Anakin thing, when he's like again, and it's like, all right, so they're doing that whole thing to do with the prequels and then the Clone Wars where they're showing his sort of anger, and I get all that, so that feels a little rehashed. But it did remind me of, I don't know if another Disney movie that our audience might know, Miracle, about the 1980 U.S. Olympic hockey team. And
I'm thinking about dodgeball.
He does the exact same thing, though. He says again when they keep screwing up, and it made me think of that. And he's just like torturing her, but of course it does end up paying off, as you say, James. She learns what she needs to do, and I juxtapose that against that scene we got in Obi-Wan, where it's them in like the prequel era, Attack of the Clones era, and Anakin is making mistakes, and Obi-Wan winds up winning that practice duel, and we see flash forward later, Vader still didn't learn from the mistake, whereas in Clone Wars, Ahsoka did. So that's I find that to be very interesting.
I'm also
especially
pumped to
because
see
it's Anakin.
Matt Lanter and Ashley back. I know we said it before, but just to see them back doing their
very
characters
nice.
because
very nice.
I'm sure it hasn't been easy seeing these characters progress in live action. So to give them their moment again is really nice.
Yeah, but especially for Ashley because she was only Ahsoka, whereas Matt Lanter came in
Of
after
course. Yeah.
Hayden played.
Yeah.
So that should be cool, and it's gonna be a big binge thing. It says 15-minute runtime. I'm assuming, does that mean each one is 15 minutes?
I would assume
Or-
everyone's 15 minutes because they're shorts.
Yeah.
Or are they gonna be like shorts like Galaxy of Adventures where these things are like 3
No.
minutes
They
each?
wouldn't be able to tell a story, I don't think. In
I
3
agree.
minutes.
I agree. But I'm surprised they're calling them shorts then, because your normal animated series is 21 minutes and this is 15. So
Yeah. I mean, there's tons. Like this trailer could almost use a breakdown in and of itself, like Ahsoka being at Padme's funeral.
There's so
and stuff.
many
It's like,
glimpses.
oh
that
my
was
gosh.
surprising to see. That was
Yeah.
very surprising to
So it's
see.
like,
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, we have so much to talk about. Like maybe we do something for when these drop, similar to
Oh yeah,
Visions or
there's
something. But
there's plenty more to be talked about when it comes to these. So the last thing to get into here, before we get into the rest of the show, is the Mando trailer, which I'm just gonna start this one and say, not great, not great, not a great trailer. Oh, and I only say that because the first minute of it, for the most part, is rehash. It's old lines from the season 1, season 2, the armorer saying you are a Mandalorian no
You have
more,
to
and
remember
stuff
there's
like that.
people that still haven't gotten into it, so they're trying to hook those people that have heard about it, that know about Grogu, that haven't gotten into it.
I completely get the approach and stuff like that,
Mhm.
but I'm not sitting and looking at this trailer saying like, oh, this is like Chewie, we're home. This is right in that wheelhouse. This is that.
I love that
So-
everybody uses that trailer as like the baseline of epic.
I mean,
Chewie, we're home.
yeah,
that's always
big.
the words. Like when you ask someone what trailer's your favorite, Chewie, we're home was pretty big. And then,
It was big, and I don't even think that's my favorite trailer, but I know that's the one that everyone remembers the most
Yeah.
and how it affected them.
yeah,
but
yeah.
I will say it's still, based on all the stuff we saw previously, whether it was at Celebration or other stuff leading up to it, it does feel grander. It feels less claustrophobic. It feels less volume. So I don't know if they did more set-based stuff for this, because like I said with the Obi-Wan behind the scenes, there were more sets than I thought there were. And this does feel bigger. I'm going to assume Favreau had this plan in place, and it wasn't a reaction to like, oh, what are they doing with Andor? I better push the envelope here. I think he had this plan in place to go bigger and bigger and bigger because of that whole culmination event they keep talking about.
I think
The
they've already
speculation
been
about the
going
movie
bigger.
coming. Yeah.
Look at the sets for season 2, episode 5, like the Jedi. That whole townscape, and then like the whole fight scene between Ahsoka and the magistrate, like that was all built with water and everything.
That's true. And the things that stand out to me the most are the stuff with Bo-Katan, and it feels almost like monarchy, Game of Thrones. She's sitting on a throne. She's like she's very stoic, and she's making these like accusations and comments, and it feels aggressive. And she's looking out the window and stuff. Like I could be way wrong, but I really keep getting these, Daenerys Targaryen Game of Thrones vibes from her, which is Mad Queen, so to speak. I'm really interested in her character more than I have been before. I'm not saying I'm less interested in Mando and Grogu and stuff, but I feel like for those two, I didn't learn much new other than I guess Grogu's gonna pop inside the main cockpit of the N1, which is fine.
Yeah.
But and no Moff Gideon either. But I'm very interested in where they're going with Bo-Katan, because I don't know where they're going, but it certainly seems like they're taking her into a direction where she may be turning heel a bit and getting a little crazy for this Darksaber.
I saw
the funny thing with the throne scenes is like every time I see a scene like that, it just brings me back to so many other movies because that long hallway with the throne up top.
Wizard of Oz, yeah.
Yeah, it reminded me of Black Panther with M'Baku, where you like goes and you
Mhm.
see that long hallway with all the wood.
Yep.
Or what was the other thing I was thinking of? I'm blanking now. Like Lord of the Rings, where Aragorn walks in, the guy's in the throne in the far end of the room.
Yeah.
But I mean, we saw it in Zelen, Babu Frick, which, from my understanding, from what people have seen in the very blurry version of the trailer I saw from Celebration, there was a clip of like multiple of that species. But then in this trailer, there was only one. And I don't think that's Babu Frick, because Babu Frick has a red outfit and this one has a blue outfit.
The subtitles just says Anzellan species.
Right. So
I don't think it's the Frick.
Regardless, I'm pumped because you guys know I love puppets. I love like the kind of practical creature stuff. So the more that we get to see that, the better. And I love that it ties back to the sequel trilogy in a way that even if it's not Babu Frick, it's his species. And I'd love to see more of the kind of things we didn't get a ton of in the sequel trilogy, which I feel is like the creature alien stuff, which is what makes Star Wars special. I mean, we were just talking about with Andor, having someone there in a conversation that's a full alien creature is like so cool. So I'm really pumped that we're seeing more of that. I loved the clip of Mando in the cockpit of the N1 starfighter where he's upside down and obviously Grogu's with him, not in his own little pod, which I love. And then the other thing was him saying like, "Are you ready for an adventure?" I say that to my daughter every time we leave the house. No joke. Every single time we leave the house, I say, "Are you ready for an adventure?" And then we go and leave the house. So I was just like, I had a moment where I was like, "Oh, I'm Mando. It's amazing." But other than that, yeah, it's pretty straightforward, very cool, very epic, cinematic. And I took away, per usual, from D23 and even Celebration, everything that like Disney and Lucasfilm are all in on Mando, Jon Favreau, and the Mandoverse. And yes, there's sprinklings of cool stuff like Rebels here and there, Ahsoka here and there, but like their main thing is the Mandalorian. From the signage at D23 where Mando was front and center with Grogu, and it was like Chewbacca, Chewbacca, BB-8, C-3PO, Fennec Shand, and Mandalorian. And that was who was on the poster. And it's like that is who their Mickey Mouse is right now for Star Wars, is Mando. And I'm all for it, but it's very interesting because when you see like Marvel or Avengers stuff, you don't see like Iron Man on every single thing, it's like all these different characters. But yeah, they're all in.
James, out of the three of us, because me and Lacey were holding the line for, actually, ironically, the Mandalorian experience at Celebration. And so we missed the panel. You got to see it live. Top of your head, you probably had some time to digest this, maybe do some poking around. Was this marginally different from what was shown at Celebration, or pretty on the nose? What do you recollect from that, and what were your biggest takeaways from this teaser?
I want to say marginally different because I can't think of anything off the top of my head that was crazy different. The one thing I did notice right away was the Bobby Frick thing. Is I feel like very specifically there was like from the audience, everybody went, "Oh, whoa!" like it was like they all cheered for Babu, and then they were like, "There's more," or like, "Wait, what are we looking at?" kind of thing. So I very specifically remember that. The only other stuff that I feel like was kind of there was, I feel like I remember seeing maybe like Paz Vizsla, and he's not in this trailer.
Okay.
But I remember the vibe being all the same stuff with the hallway, Mandalore, all that. I remember the
it's super interesting.
Monkeys,
She calls them a cult.
monkey. Yeah, I remember the Quacking monkey lizards in the tree.
Yeah.
And stuff. So a lot of this felt very similar. So I think the same vibe is there. They probably just swapped out a couple different things. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if they were like, well, they're not supposed to be recording this anyway. We'll throw in this special treat here and this special treat here, these little things, and then we'll just replace those shots with what I would say a little bit of a criticism on this one is there's a lot of shots from the same scene or same episode where they visit Carl Weathers' like cityscape, and they're fighting off these like random do-batters or something, you know, in the town. I feel like you can almost like put the whole scene together and know that that's like an entire episode, but I don't know. That's the only takeaway. But like, I think I think most Star Wars fans have probably seen this through leaked things or something. So this wasn't like a big, huge shock, but it's nice to have it available now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was about less than a minute of new stuff. The N1 flying through asteroids, very big Obi-Wan and Attack of the Clones against Boba Fett feelings, as well as, of course, Han Solo flying through the asteroid field. So that'll be fun to see.
There's a fireworks shot that I'm certain is probably the last scene in the episode.
Yes, I love that. It was very Naboo with the...
Yeah, that was interesting.
I got a feeling that he's going to do something and the city's going to be like, hey, we're free of the people now. And he's whoosh, flies off, you know? He's like, he saved the town kind of thing.
Yeah, I have to say that the funniest thing is that I was so sad when the Razor Crest got blown up because I was like, how are you going to top this awesome ship? And then the N1 Starfighter came along and it's like, oh, forget the Razor Crest. Nobody cares about that anymore.
It's like an RV now.
It is the coolest thing ever. And I'm surprised that they haven't put out any sets or anything through Hasbro or Lego or anything. I'm sure it's on the way for Christmas this year, but...
I like the N1, not as much as a vehicle where characters can hang out.
You know like the common area type stuff. Yeah, I get it. I get it.
Like, because this is Luke and R2 in the X-Wing.
It's not Millennium Falcon hanging out.
It's not Falcon
I get it.
living room. Yeah, so who knows what that means for the future. But, yeah, I mean, cool trailer. I completely trust Jon Favreau, so he's giving us exactly what he wants to give us. I like that he's hiding Moff Gideon away so that we don't really know what's going on, but
I feel like we're not getting anything from this trailer. They're showing us like very little bits and it seems intense, but even then it's all, like James said, from the same episode.
It feels like the only thing he wants to show us that's new is this is where Bo-Katan is now.
Yes. This is where she's at, yeah.
So I have seen some comparisons. There's one shot where they do like the Rogue One camera strapped to the N1 and it's like blowing up. There's like a ship that it's blowing up. And as it's kind of passing, if you're kind of like looking at its silhouette, that bigger ship behind it, it kind of looks similar to a class of Star Destroyer that existed after the Empire in Legends canon. And that was all sort of tied to, you know, remnants of the Empire and other things like that.
I love that camera angle, by the way. I love that they keep putting that in there.
Yeah. If that is in fact the same kind of ship, it will be neat for Legends fans who are seeing that ship come to life. That could mean also, again, like it's all leading sort of to Thrawn and like the bigger, like what is the Empire doing post the death of the Emperor and stuff. So, I mean, there are like little things that you can pick out, but again, this is what it just feels like that you might have seen some of this. So it's sort of been talked out. And so if had this not aired at Celebration, we'd be looking at this and we would have a lot more to say about it, but we've already kind of speculated on the throne room and Bo-Katan and where it's going and stuff. So
we'll get another trailer probably like around Christmas or something.
So there's our quick intro.
Yeah.
There's our 45-minute intro to the episode. But we have more to talk about. So this is almost like 2 episodes in one because we love Star Wars and we love you guys so much. So we are going to send it now to our normal segment to kick things off on the normal Mondays scale and talk about the rest of the news in the Resistance Report right now.
It's the Resistance.
All right, the meat and potatoes this week, at least starting off with a big one, is going to be talking all about Ahsoka. So Rosario Dawson is currently doing a lot of promo for Clerks 3, And as it goes, she gets asked about Star Wars. In this exclusive from Screen Rant, Dawson was talking a little bit of an update on Ahsoka, saying that, they're still filming right now and there's a couple months left, but that it's going great. And, some details on how she's really falling in love with the character in the sense of like she understood her before and like, this and that. But now that she has to be acrobatic to some degree, like this martial arts sort of thing, it's like she's really diving into the personality of the character and understanding her more and more and how that affects her personal life as well. She's saying she's having a super amazing time. There's kind of some funny lighthearted stuff that she talks about with that. But to me, I think this is just, good news coming from Rosario Dawson that Ahsoka is still in the works and everything is good to go on it. John, you actually put together the article when these statements came out. Is that because you're a big Clerks fan or what's going on?
No, I hadn't written in a while and I was like, I'm just going to grab this one. So that's what that was. And I was up earlier than I thought I was going to be. So the stars aligned and here I am. But yeah, Rosario Dawson, I was always a fan of hers. Dating back to, Sin City and Death Proof, which I love. And so we're talking like almost, even before that too, almost 2 decades of her work. And she, she's still only in her early 40s. But I just, anytime I see her in an interview, I feel like she's very genuine. And I like the fact that she is taking this so seriously because some people could, they have a great resume and they don't need to prove anything. There are some other actors in this cast for Ahsoka, Natasha Liu Bordizzo, who isn't a household name like a Rosario Dawson, who maybe has something to prove. She's setting an example for these other cast members. And I think leading from that perspective is a very important thing because personalities and attitude and stuff like that is contagious no matter what industry you're in, what social groups you're in. You always, contempt breeds contempt and misery loves company. But on the other side, on the positive side, positivity and optimism and stuff like that breeds that as well. And also her dedication, her saying like, I'm falling in love with this character. This character has changed my life. Going out on these limbs and saying these bold things is so cool to hear because again, I love hearing Star Wars actors wanting to be all in on what they're doing with Star Wars. And for a name like hers to be doing that is really cool because, I don't know how, I don't think, Woody Harrelson's the type of guy who, or Bill Burr, like he doesn't really think like love Star Wars, but he like nailed his role. But I think he did it more from a, let me knock this role out. I'm going to do the best I can, take my check and go home. And that's cool. I'm cool with that too. But Rosario Dawson seems like she's all in. Like Dave Filoni like convinced her like this character is so important and you're the one who's going to shepherd her into the, the bigger audience. The general audience is going to see this character for the first time and you're going to be Ahsoka. After all the groundwork Ashley Eckstein and Dave laid out, you're the one. And then the martial arts thing, she had brought it up at Celebration. And she's got to, sort of bring these lines back around because they have their go-to lines to deflect other questions. And I respect the hell out of that. But I kind of like hearing that because I really wasn't sure what type of Ahsoka we're going to get here. Yeah, we did see her go warrior style in that Mandalorian episode, which was good to see because at the end of Rebels, she looks more of like the, passive, old, wise, big giant robe. I'm holding a staff
Gandalf.
Type of person. Gandalf, yeah, not getting into combat. Yeah, you're right. Not getting into combat, so to speak. So I'm like, well, if we're taking off from that, are we getting a more reserved Ahsoka like we saw in Book of Boba Fett, where she's more of like the monk sort of Jedi? Or are we going to get the warrior who was cutting guys up in the woods in that Mandalorian episode? And hearing that she went to like through full martial arts training for this, sounds like we're going to see some serious Ahsoka action in this series. She's not just going to be like the Luke Skywalker Last Jedi, who is sort of like leading with his knowledge and his mistakes and that sort of thing, like the mental game. She's still going to be right back in the mix. And I think that's
Obi-Wan
really
prequels, not Obi-Wan A New Hope.
Yeah.
Lacey thought...
And I've always been a big fan of hers, so I'm rooting for it.
Lacey, anything stick out to you in particular? There was one thing. I'll get to it in a minute. Want to see if you pointed out too.
Yeah, I think she's just so awesome. I would say amazing, but the way she talks about using the word amazing, I'm like really trying not to use that word ever again. Because she was like, don't overuse it. But I really, really like her. I've liked her from previous projects like Sin City and in Clerks, especially. She's hilarious in that movie. Clerks too. But that being said, I think I've said this before with The Mandalorian, her episode was something that I thoroughly enjoyed. And I feel like some people had critiques with that episode, and I really, really liked it. I liked what she did with Ahsoka, and it made me love the character more than I already did, and I actually leaned towards that representation of the character over Ashley Eckstein. And I know people are going to get mad for me saying that, but I don't know, there was just something so real to that character in that episode, and there was such a sadness there that it was just so cool to see in live action. So I really loved her talking about that, and I'm sure she sees their critiques online of like, oh, well, she's not Ashley. No, she's not, and she's not going to be. She's going to make this character her own while also respecting what Ashley did and respecting Dave Filoni, what he's done so far, and then bringing that character into the future of where she goes from here. So I really liked her talking about how she physically embodies the character in a real way, and she's not just bringing her to live action, but really understanding her process. Like John was saying, this character clearly means a lot to her. I think she realizes that this character and this role is like the role of a lifetime for her, and she doesn't take that lightly. And she's been doing the training that's necessary. She is putting in the work to make sure she does it justice. And I love that. I love that she's showing how important it is to her, because I know that we were going to get a great character already because she's an amazing actress. But I think even more so, the dedication that she's shown and continues to show through these interviews and just talking about it, we're going to get something that we weren't even prepared for. Like, it's going to be that good. And her fight scenes that we've seen so far have just been really cool. So I can't wait to see what's coming next.
Yeah,
I was just real quick. I was just thinking about something. Like, the conventions, and you see these older actors, and they're being announced for New York Comic Con, and there's always like 2 or 3 projects that they put in their next to their name in parentheses. She's gonna be known as Ahsoka when she's 75 and signing autographs and stuff. Like, and she's had such a big career. Has played so many great characters. She's like, I would say, borderline A-list actor, and that's gonna say Ahsoka Tano Star Wars.
She's in Marvel,
and,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's interesting because, I don't want to say everybody, but everybody kind of thinks like, oh, one day I would like to get that Star Wars call that they want me to be in Star Wars, right? And sometimes you get the call where they're like, yeah, we want you to be in Star Wars, but it's like not like this crazy role or anything, like kind of Ming-Na Wen said that. She was like, oh, do I take it? Like, yeah, it's like The Mandalorian, but it's like kind of this random bounty hunter, and I basically die in one episode. Like, do I really want to risk my big Star Wars get on that one role, on
a side
she's
character,
like, maybe pass on it and get one later, but I'm getting older, so she had to like make this decision. She went for it, and she's so glad she did. But it's kind of like, I think Rosario Dawson being in that same boat of like obviously having a career before this, when she sees that there's this blow up of fans saying, yes, get that person to be, and it's a reputable, huge, well-loved, established character, like Ewan McGregor being offered Obi-Wan. Yeah, we want you to be the young Obi-Wan. That's a Star Wars get, and I think she recognized that immediately and was like, yes, like, if I have any opportunity to be in Star Wars, I could wait and let them offer me a role for what comes up. But fans are doing it for me right now, and I would gladly take that one because that's huge. That would cement me forever as Ahsoka, as that character, and it would be fan loved forever. So I think she recognized it immediately, and she's taking it very seriously now that she has the job. as John, you said earlier. The one thing I now, this is just my ignorance when it comes to this stuff. She said they're still filming now and they're going to for a couple of months, but they had already filmed like a ton of stuff when we were at Celebration. That's like a long shoot, isn't it?
They were about a month in, I think. So I think the timetable for these shows, like say 8 to 10 episodes, whatever it is, like 6 to 7 months is probably right. So they probably started.
You said March.
When was Celebration? When was
April,
Celebration?
right?
Late May. They probably started. I think they
Okay,
started
April.
in April. So they'll probably take it to October, November.
May,
Yeah.
June, July. Okay, all right. I guess that makes sense.
And which has me thinking, like, now that we know they don't overlap this stuff, at least right now, Mandalorian is at least going to take us past Celebration, like mid-April, and then I assume post-production on this will probably be the same time frame as like The Mandalorian, which that was like 7 months. So I'm thinking this wraps in November. They finish production in say like June. I think this is gonna be like a summer release. I think this is gonna be like sort of like how Obi-Wan was. I think that's when we're gonna get this, because then I think Acolyte's gonna come at the end of next year. So I think we're in for a sort of similar time frame as like Obi-Wan. I think like late May. I feel like May the 4th might be too soon. Especially it's this show's first season, so they have to like create their assets for it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking like June or something like that for Ahsoka. I don't know about you guys.
I think that's correct.
You know better than I
think
do.
we're
You're
gonna
always good
get-
at guessing.
Yeah, I think we're going to get a bunch of Ahsoka stuff at Celebration, which is about April. I'm thinking, I don't know, maybe a May 4th.
Well, it's.
See, I thought it was too soon, but
I don't think they would drop a big show like that on May 4th. That's not what they're traditionally done for May 4th. They've always given us like
Not
one
yet.
small thing.
Bad Batch debuted May 4th, didn't it?
It did.
It did. Yeah, you're right.
Maybe animation's not, that the tier they're talking about for
But
that.
I'm saying maybe
Well, they're clearly
this
not
time
treating
they
Bad
will.
Batch well right now.
We're gonna get the full trailer though at Celebration. You know
I
that.
think it depends, honestly, what the Marvel schedule looks like. Because they've had some problems
true,
where there
too.
is a lot of
That's fair.
overlap,
Yeah.
and then they shift stuff around.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have a lot to get through. Like for instance, like Andor and Bad Batch releasing at the same time? Question mark. We don't know. They just recently put out She-Hulk on Thursdays. So if Disney Plus is willing to make a move like that, maybe one of these shows shifts to Thursday release, so you get Andor on Wednesday, Bad Batch on Thursday, or something like that. But then the other thing is that Ahsoka will obviously be like the next big release by the time Celebration comes around. So they're going to be full force Ahsoka at that point.
Right.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
That would be their
That's
next
interesting.
big show. Mandalorian will have just wrapped, and so they're clearly going to be leaning into that show next, right?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Anyway.
I guess we'll see.
Yeah, let's move on to the next thing here, which is Genevieve O'Reilly talking about Mon Mothma and Andor. She's doing a little bit of press for it as well. This one comes from Entertainment Weekly. Some of these magazines get like the craziest articles and interviews, and sometimes they just kind of get like, I don't want to say overlooked, but like sometimes they'll do one with Cassian or with Diego Luna, and that gets all the attention. But Genevieve O'Reilly also doing, it's kind of one of those things. But this article is really interesting when it comes to how she looks at the character and has always looked at the character, the many times she's gotten to play her. She always refers to the original, and now that we're gonna see more of Mon Mothma than we ever have, it's oddly kind of become like her role. And what she wants to do with it and where she's going to take the character is what you get to see, what you get to hear about when you read the article. It's pretty good. Lacey, any thoughts on what she has to say about Mon Mothma?
Yeah, I mean, this show is just looking so good. It's looking so good. But every interview I read, it's just an interesting take after interesting take of characters that we know and ones that we haven't yet met. With this one in particular, I love how she describes Mon Mothma in a way I didn't really see her before. She talks about the character having this kind of pain that she's dealt with. And I always kind of took that as kind of a resilience, more of like a very professional, like to the point commander, general of this rebellion that's trying to make things happen and stay strong for everybody around her. But now that she's saying this way, yeah, that is definitely a way you can view that character in those movies of like just this sadness of the sacrifice and the steps people had to take to get them the information they needed or the people that they've lost along the way. The interview here and ones that I've read previously, she definitely has an interesting take of what we're going to see in this series, which is her obviously playing both sides, her realizing what's at stake, her being married, which I didn't know she was married until this point.
Dude, that one was the one line where I was like, whoa, like, I don't know if that's known
and
in
I think
canon
she was
or
married
not.
since she was like 16 too. Like it's like a young marriage.
Oh,
is
maybe.
what I had read in a previous interview, which is
But
kind
when
of,
I saw that in the interview, I immediately was like, I don't think I've ever considered her husband and how he falls into this.
Right, and considered what sacrifices did she make to get to the position she's in for the rebellion when we see her later in the timeline. This show is gonna, Tony Gilroy said it a lot in his interviews, and I think we're going to keep thinking that going into it is we're going to see a whole new view of a lot of these characters and a lot of the scenes that we've seen in Rogue One and the original trilogy that are going to mean that much more. And I think this is a character that we're just going to really gravitate to and learn so much about that I'm like really excited outside of just her clothes. I know I've made jokes in the past of like, oh, she looks so great. I think we're going to learn a lot about this character in a way that I wasn't expecting.
I said it a while back that I was like, man, the more that she gets brought up in like a book or a comic or an animated thing or whatever, I'm always like, man, I feel like I'm like a sneaky Mon Mothma super fan. Like, I think that her being in this show is absolutely perfect. Like, yes, she is the head of the rebellion, and what does it take to lead that? Especially from, we know in Rebels that there's like literally a point where she sends out the message. She's like, there's no going back now. I've announced that I'm part of the rebellion and I'm out of the Senate now. Permanently.
So you're a Mothma maniac.
Yeah, I guess so.
Maniac.
A maniac, yeah. The other thing that I thought was really interesting about this was what you said, Lacey, about how she has that coldness, like what's kind of
I always just took it as
takes.
like a resilience, as like a very professional vibe.
No.
But now that she's saying like it's pain, I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I totally like over my head.
But that's good because to me, I already felt that way. So to her to verbalize it, she goes, yes, this is what Mon Mothma is. I go, great. That's great news because you get it and you understand that that's where she's coming from. There's been other times in canon where she like sits down with a specific character and explains things similar to Leia, like in The Last Jedi, where everybody's cheering. We took down a dreadnought, and she's looking at the screen of like the dead soldiers, and she's like, like every victory comes with loss, and I'm the one that sends the personal message and visits the people and has to tell them that we lost their son, So that coldness that comes to victory is very important in a character like Mon Mothma, who stands even higher than Leia on the rebellion, like,
I'm ready to have
stature.
my eyes opened to a lot of these characters in a way that I didn't expect. Like, I'm ready to be like, oh, wow. Like the whole series, because I know that's what's going to happen.
I know there's going to be a billion fans out there that watch this show, learn this character, and then go watch Return of the Jedi and be like, oh, that's her. Like, I never even put that together.
Yeah. Sure.
That was just random white lady, like I say that because it's her clothing. Yeah.
I always consider her like not Leia.
Yeah. Some
The other lady,
lady.
she's the one wearing all white now, and she's like the new
Bowl-cut
Leia. Like when I was a kid, I was
bedsheet
like, she's
lady.
like the yeah.
Exactly. John, thoughts on this particular interview? Is she on the right page in your mind? Like, what's going on?
Well, I appreciate that she like looked into Caroline Blackiston, who, again, not a name that people would fire off in, movie trivia or anything like that.
Sure.
But clearly someone who studied acting and had her own professional career and, got herself into Star Wars. And it's funny because I looked up an old interview with Caroline Blackiston, who's still alive, by the way. I think she's like 89 or 90. Which, side note, I feel like they could have brought her in for the sequel trilogy for a little bit. Like that would have been really cool to see an older Mon Mothma, like retired, like just like for some advice or something like that, and bring
Is she
back
dead?
the original actors. But I just told you she's alive.
No, I'm saying the character.
As far as I know, no. She like sort of left the scene, and Pat Covey, our old pal, like filled me in on the deal.
Okay, yeah.
On Twitter. But he always knows those like little minute things. But I guess they bring her up in Bloodline or something like that, and what her story.
I remember that, but I didn't know if there had been anything like that had specified how she died or what happened to her or something. But
I just that would have been cool if they just brought, they were desperate. Why not go to the political version of Yoda and get her thoughts on what should happen. Like that would have been cool to see. An older Leia having a conversation with an even older Mon Mothma, like Leia still needing to learn or something. But they didn't. That's fine. But back to this. It's funny because you really cannot make the argument that they don't care about, creating these characters. And when I say creating these characters, they really are creating Mon Mothma's character here because, in that interview it was from 2006 with Caroline Blackiston, and she was like painting the picture of her whole experience filming Return of the Jedi, and I didn't know any of this. But they like changed her lines the day of, and she was already having a hard time with all the Star Warsian jargon that Lucas would pop in there, obviously with Lawrence Kasdan writing. And she was very nervous, and like Harrison Ford had to like calm her down, and Carrie Fisher had to calm her down and stuff like that. And this is a seasoned actress who was in her late 40s. She probably already did so much work already. And she said she had no idea who her character was. She just got her lines and delivered them. So when I read Genevieve O'Reilly saying like, you can tell she had this like somber tone, I'm like, yeah, she was probably just like
Terrified.
Shaking at the knees that she was getting her lines right. But it worked, and that's fine. And I guess my main point is that now you have Genevieve O'Reilly, who's going to be probably more known for playing Mon Mothma just because of the amount of minutes she'll be on screen, still respecting that small cameo in Return of the Jedi as the template for who this person is, and then creating a personality based on how she delivered those lines about Bothan spies while standing next to a guy with a Velcro beard. It's just amazing how Star Wars, how they've made it more serious, but in an earnest, good way that I think is going to pay off, because I think it's key for Mon Mothma to be here. I don't think this is some sort of thing like, let's just bring in Mon Mothma. It is very important to the story of the rebellion, but they're like really going for it with this character stuff, and I think that's really perfect for this show into Rogue One and what the tone they're going for. So I'm all about it, and the fact that she brought up her name and she actually looked into who she was and stuff, I have a lot of respect for that, because I'm sure there's plenty of small role Star Wars characters that are going to be recast on the line, and that actor's not going to even care that character existed before. So a lot of respect for her to do that level of homework. And also, it's a nice little redemption for her, because she got cut out of Revenge of the Sith. So she's been playing Mon Mothma for...
Don't forget.
Right, but she's been playing Mon Mothma for 17 years.
Yeah.
And yeah, Rogue One, of course, and this is sort of like the redemption of that, and I think that's cool. They brought her back because they didn't have to. They could have brought in a completely different actor. Like, no, let's bring her back. Who did that stuff with George Lucas? Yeah.
I was gonna say too that, I mean, even that line that she's saying she's going back to research that moment in that line, it goes to show what we're talking about, the coldness of it, because she's standing in front of everybody, and she could be saying like, hey, we got the information we need. Isn't that great, everybody? Get excited. All right, now let's move on to the next step. She just stands there and says, people died. Like, I want you to understand that.
Yeah.
Everybody in this room recognize for a second that many people died to bring us this information. You know, kind of thing. It's like it's very heavy, and she's recognizing the cost of the war and then saying, but we have to move forward, kind of thing.
Will we see Bothans?
Yeah.
I don't think we will. I don't think we're ever going to see him.
I hope Bothans go the way of like Yoda's origins, and it's like one of those things where we just don't. You just
never
don't
know.
Need to
Imagine
know.
that's in George's contract. He's like, no Yoda, no Bothans.
That would be interesting. We got one other story too.
No Mara Jade.
Yeah. This story is Fires. We're talking about Rian Johnson looking back on The Last Jedi, Mark Hamill's reactions to the movie, Carrie Fisher's passing, and more. So much that went on in this Empire article, as they sort of broke it into two things. They're like, hey, look, come here and talk about Glass Onion. That's great. We have that article. But also, could you do like a perspective on Star Wars? How are you feeling about it as of now? And a lot of crazy quotes. I don't know if they like lit up Twitter or whatever, but some of this stuff saying like he's even more proud of it than he was before. I just thought we should probably take a little bit and kind of talk about some of the maybe the keys or key moments, takeaways from this particular article. Starting with John. John, where were you at? I did the John thing. Starting with John. John. Rian Johnson.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I didn't come out of this interview feeling any like different on his perspective, because I feel like the director and the Jedi, like we really got to see how it really went. So I think a lot of that, and probably unbeknownst to him, he is recollecting things probably accurately in terms of his experience, because he probably made that movie and walked out of it thinking like, wow, I did it. I nailed it. I came in under budget. I came in on time. Everyone, Kathleen Kennedy loves what I did. I got Mark Hamill on board, and he turned out that performance. This is gonna be great.
They just gave me another trilogy.
Then the movie, yeah, well, no, that happens later. But then the movie comes out, and he probably like
that
gets
happened
blindsided.
before the movie came out.
Well, I'm saying when he finished making
when he finished the movie. Okay.
Yeah. So I think he was probably blindsided by the reaction to it. And I also think J.J. Abrams was blindsided by Episode 9. I think J.J. Abrams thought he crushed Episode 9 based on the interviews. Like, I think everyone's going to be satisfied, all that stuff. And then I think he did not expect that reaction. So I think Rian Johnson dealt with a bit of the same stuff. I don't know if I need to hear Rian Johnson talking more about Mark Hamill, though. I just think it's one of those things where they'll never agree on it. I have heard from people who have interviewed Mark Hamill saying he hates that movie to this day, and it's not going to change. And I just don't know that we need Rian to try to justify the choices. We understand his choices, and I respect his choices as a filmmaker. I think he's brilliant. I mean, look what the guy's doing right now, and everyone's so white hot for Glass Onion. And I think that's going to be incredible too. So, again, there's nuance to it. It's not just, I don't like Rian Johnson. Because I really like The Last Jedi. It's not one of my go-to to put on because it doesn't, bring me that much like joy. And, I like more of like the Star Wars like adventure type stuff. But I do like that it exists and that it's part of the saga. And I wouldn't, at this point, change that. But I don't know if like hearing him say like I gotta choose my words carefully and stuff. It's like, then don't say them. Like go. I would tell them, go watch that documentary, that 3-hour documentary they put out of us making them. There it is, right there. I know people want to get him to talk about this stuff, but he clearly seems like he's walking on eggshells to this day, 5 years later, and talking about this movie and the Mark Hamill stuff. It's like if you go through a breakup and your ex like moves across the street, and that scab just keeps getting ripped off every time you see them. I don't know that we need to revisit, the choices and like how Mark feels about it and how Rian feels about it and all that stuff. Because don't we all know that stuff? Like, aren't we all tired of that to the point where we heard so much of that for the 2 years that followed The Last Jedi? I could be wrong, but I feel like Star Wars fans, especially online and social media, never recovered from The Last Jedi. Whether you love the movie or don't like the movie, or you think the movie's fine, it just like once December,
It
like,
was definitely
TFA
a turning point.
TFA, the hype to TFA was like serotonin shot out of a rocket. And like TFA comes out, almost everyone's like, oh my God, that's incredible. Could have used more Luke. Can't wait for the next one. Rogue One comes out, people are like, oh my God, my face is melting. This is unbelievable. I can't believe they did that. Vader, holy cow. The plans, it goes right into, oh my God, this is amazing.
They're killing it, yeah.
Last Jedi comes out, and then it just war happens, and fans took their sides and stuff. And I don't think it's ever gotten back to that point. So anytime these types of interviews come out, I get nervous, and you see it online, and people just rehash those old arguments, and it's just I'm just wondering, when is it going to end? And I want Rian Johnson to be a happy guy making movies and stuff, whether that's in Star Wars or not. He's a talented guy. He seems like a nice enough guy. I don't know that this is good for him to go back and revisit this stuff. So that's my initial take on it. You know, I'll pop back in if you guys toss around things that trigger a thought in me, but I just don't I don't know. I don't need this sort of let's go back and let me explain why I did what sort of thing. Like, we know why you did. So
Lacey, did this article I don't know, I hate to say use such cliche words, but did this article do anything for you? Did you gain anything? Did you learn anything? Did it make you more angry? Like, what did it do?
It made me more.
Well, I'm saying, like, yeah, you know what I mean.
He's really setting the bar here. All right. So here's my thought. My thought is, one, they did this part to get clicks and to sell magazines. That they knew that getting Rian Johnson to talk about this, whether you love him or hate him, you're going to read it. So well done there, Empire. Part two. I think Rian Johnson made choices that he thought worked for him. And I've always been honest about this. I think there's a ton of stuff in The Last Jedi that I loved. I loved the Kylo Ren stuff. I loved the Rey stuff. I loved some lines from Leia and moments with Poe. I don't like some stuff in the movie. You know, I don't like Finn's storyline very much, and I don't like what they did with Luke, and that's just my choice. Now, I think that there's definitely a level on the internet of not liking something and being crazy about it, and I think he gets into that in this interview, which I kind of appreciate, that he said, hey, look, I know that there's definitely levels here. And he said he grew up at a time when people watched Star Wars and didn't agree on everything. And that's what made it so awesome, which I totally agree. That's what's so awesome about Star Wars and the fandom in general, is when we all have different viewpoints and experiences and likes and dislikes. That's what makes it interesting. That's what makes it transcend just watching a movie and it becoming a part of this culture, this fandom, this community of people that are experiencing it differently. And just between the three of us, we have so many different viewpoints. Love that. I have to say, just like John, I didn't like him talking about Mark Hamill. I thoroughly enjoyed Director and the Jedi. I loved the Skywalker Legacy behind the scenes documentary as well. I am not even exaggerating right now. I sobbed watching Director and the Jedi because of Mark Hamill. Because here was a guy that was he still is, but was my childhood hero. I grew up loving him. He was basically everything that made me love movies and basically gave me my imagination. Like, Luke Skywalker is that hero for me. So to see what Mark Hamill went through was hurtful as a fan, because I was like, here's someone that is probably, I knew he was, so excited to be back in Star Wars, and it's not going the way he wanted it to go. Now, that's not to say that I think that Mark is the person that should make those choices. He's not the storyteller. I get that. But in going in these two paragraphs where he talks about Mark and how he would argue with Mark and go back and forth with Mark, and the part where he says things like, you know, quote, but he's Mark Hamill. He's not literally Luke Skywalker. To me, as a fan, even though I love Rian Johnson and I love choices that he made with The Last Jedi and I love the other stuff that he's doing, can't wait for Glass Onion, that statements like that rub me the wrong way because I'm like, yeah, he's not Luke Skywalker, but he is Luke Skywalker. Like that's who he's been for 40 years. Yes, he's been Joker. Yes, he's been other characters and he's done an amazing job at those characters. But he is what makes Luke Skywalker so great, and he's embodied that character on and off screen. So to say comments like that kind of rubs me the wrong way in the sense of like, oh, well, he's not Luke Skywalker, so I can then do what I want with the character. And it's kind of just like, oh, I don't know if I agree with that statement, because you kind of want people to be on board. Now, as he goes into it, he says, you know, Mark didn't agree, but he said he would give me the best performance ever. And Mark absolutely did. He was amazing in The Last Jedi, whether he liked the way it went or not. But yeah, I agree with John. I just don't want to open up that wound. And this interview, I feel like, did that specifically. But I loved the other bits and pieces he gave. But the Mark stuff, it just seems like it's like, you don't need to rehash it. You don't need to bring it back up. You don't need to argue your point. We know why you did what you did, and you stood by that statement, and a lot of fans really loved it. But I did appreciate him saying that just because you didn't like it doesn't mean you're wrong. Because I think a lot of fans were rubbed the wrong way by him and other fans by saying, oh, because I didn't like Luke Skywalker, I'm not a good fan. And he's like, no, that's not what I'm saying. It's when you get abusive and toxic that you're not a good fan. And I agree with that 100%. You're allowed to not like a movie.
I think you did a good job explaining that aspect of it.
Absolutely.
But don't you...
Go ahead, John.
Don't you think that... I don't know if I like the idea of big movie directors being so within arm's reach, proverbially, from
I think
fans.
that's just the world we live in now, unfortunately. It's just so touchable.
Always.
Like, you can just kind of reach out to people. Like, I saw today some guy has a football player on his draft team, and he sent him this, like, joke message that was like, you better play your best games ever because I have you on my team or something. It's just, like, really weird. We live in a weird world right now.
I agree. Yeah. But And I make this parallel just because of like how each person handled those particular situations. And for me, I always do J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson. And, you know, J.J. Abrams got death threats for episode 9. And, you know, how did you do this to Ben Solo? And I can't believe this is how you ended the saga with Rey taking the name and stuff. And I even had an article talking about, you know, fans who were positive and defending Rian Johnson who wound up becoming the villain, so to speak, and doing the exact thing they hated when episode 9 came out. And some of those tweets were like, I have 2 bullets for J.J. Abrams just in case one misses. And it's just like,
it's because words have lost meaning. I mean, that's the bigger psychology of us as humans.
He never engaged it, though.
Right.
He never went online and talked about it. He didn't talk about it in interviews.
Yes, he did.
The only thing he ever said was, if they didn't like it, they're completely right.
Oh, yeah, that's what he said. Yeah.
He said they have every right to feel that way. And that was it. And then that ends all the questioning. I feel like Rian, like, he says things like, the nerve endings are burned off and now I'm numb to it and maybe that's a bad thing. It's like, dude, just stop even talking about it.
It's the acknowledgement.
I think that's a personality thing, because like you are going to have
you're letting them know that you're paying attention to them and they're getting to you, at least to the point where you observe them and acknowledge them. And that's fuel. That's not snuffing out a fire. That's adding fuel to it.
But I think
that's emboldening people.
But in this particular case, John, it feels like that the reason you're thinking that way is because you agree with how JJ is handling it. But another person in another conversation would be like, I think it's ridiculous that a director doesn't even try to engage fans or learn anything about them on Twitter. They just like put it out and say like, screw it, I'm done, walk away, and don't respond to any of that stuff. It's like, at least some of these other directors are at least open and you know, having the conversations with their fans. Like, social media is about that.
I mean,
you know, but I'm saying, I'm giving the other perspective of like, you know, I think you agree with how JJ handled it, but I don't think
Spielberg
I don't
trading
think that
barbs
what Ryan's
with
doing
some
is
guy.
The wrong way to handle it.
over like Ready Player One because he used the wrong DeLorean or something. Like that would never happen.
I think there's levels here of like engaging with fans that are trolling you is different, and like dunking on people, probably not necessary. But on the side with James, I agree that it is something cool to be able to communicate with directors, producers.
I'm not saying that.
No, I know, but he's kind of arguing both ways where it's like...
I'm saying I think the reason your opinion is so strong on this that, you know, Ryan shouldn't be doing that is just because I think you agree with the way that JJ, that's your personality type. You feel like directors kind of should be a little bit more like above that in some degree or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah. And I'm saying I you know, that's a fine stance to have, but it's just an outlook on like how things should be, you know, like I don't know, these people should or should not do this. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But also like I don't know. I mean, like
James Gunn goes back and forth with people all the time. Taika does. Yeah.
I mean,
I don't mind.
You look at any like anybody, like any professional stance, like whether it's a politician, like some are going to be very vocal and open on social media, and another politician is going to be like,
I understand that.
Like I don't want to use social media.
If I'm running Star Wars, I'm telling my directors like, dude, like, what are you doing? Like you're responding to, you know, Sheev6969 who has 8 followers because they called you a soy boy or something. It's like, what are you doing, dude?
Well, I don't think that's what he's even referring to in this article.
James Gunn, like, I don't mind what he does, which is like debunks articles from news sites that say something completely fabricated about his movie. I think that's cool. That's cool because you're like, here's the facts. That didn't happen. This did happen. Fine. But when it comes to like what Ryan was saying, like, and he learned from that experience, but then he also adds that thing like, now I'm numb to it, and now it doesn't bother me anymore. And it's like, but you're saying that, so you still think about it, and it's just like, I want him to be able to be past him, especially if he's going to come back to Star Wars, because he knows it's not going to get any better when he comes back.
He was going back and forth a lot with fans after The Last Jedi came out. That's the other thing too. It was a lot, but
what I'm looking at here is in this
I'm
interview,
rooting for him. I'm trying to say that, you know,
he's saying he's being asked the question of like, dude, how do you not like just hate yourself? Like, how do you like most people
close
can't
down
even
your
take
account
any sort of criticism online, and you took a ton of it. How are you still like okay with that? How are you still able to handle all of that hate all the time? Because we've had other directors that gotten like some comments one night and it was just like blowing up their Twitter one night, and they're like, I'm never doing Star Wars because I don't want to have anything to do with that. How are you handling this? And he's kind of answering that question like, my brain has become numb to it. It's a wall now. Like these negative comments are hitting me, and he's just like explaining it. I feel like in some times when I listen to Rian Johnson talk about The Last Jedi, it's very much like he personally feels so right about this that maybe, you know how when an argument you go around in circles, you're like, maybe I'm not explaining it right. If I could just explain it a different way, maybe I could win you over this time. And that's never going to happen because that other person has just completely made up their mind. That's what's going on, is he always feels like maybe he could just retell it from how maybe this perspective of like how I was handling it. It was scary. I didn't want to do it, but I had to. I knew I had to. And he's trying to re-explain it in hopes to maybe win some of those people over and get them to stop doing this stuff.
I get it, James.
They're never going to. So why?
Right. And there's also a side of this, James, that is kind of not in this article and probably never will be, is not only was he engaging with people that were saying negative things, but he was also engaging people that were always saying, Ryan's right and here's why. And here's why you're wrong if you don't agree with me. So by agreeing with those people and highlighting those creators that are saying, here's why everything Rian Johnson did is the best thing ever and everything you feel about it is wrong. Yeah. He's saying that even the people that fall in the in-between of saying, hey, it's not my favorite movie, but it was okay, are also wrong. You know what I mean? Like he made
yeah.
choices early on online to engage with certain things and to make certain stances. And I'm not saying it's wrong because that's his journey, so to speak. Like that's his choice. And I respect that choice. But there is kind of an anxiety for me as a fan of him being involved with Star Wars still, of saying like, okay, what is that online landscape going to look like when this starts up again?
There's a slight air, and it might be inadvertent or unintended, but when you do stuff like that, there's an air of pretentiousness to it. Sort of like they're saying like, you just didn't get it.
Oh my gosh, that is the worst when people say things like that about any pop culture stuff. Like, oh, if you didn't like this, you didn't get it.
lose my mind because I'm like, I think I get it more than you do. I just don't need to tell people.
And
how
that's
it is,
not just this. That's like anything. Like, oh, you watched this Marvel movie and you didn't like it. You didn't get it.
Yeah, and I understand all the choices Rian Johnson made, and he wanted to like re-explore the myth of Luke Skywalker, and he wound up fortifying that by the end by having Luke do something that no Jedi ever did. And
right, selfless.
I understand all of that, but I also understand that people's hearts were ripped out of their chests seeing Luke go that way. So it's not all like you're either on my side or you're on their side or anything like that. Like, I like The Last Jedi. I can also at the same time criticize some of the choices he made after this movie came out, which is ironic because, as we talked about last week, it's the only movie that didn't have problems when it was being made. The problems came after. The problems with this were the PR stuff after the movie came out. Yeah. So I just want this to be able to be moved on from. I'm not saying like saying The Last Jedi is saying like Voldemort or Beetlejuice 3 times or something like that. But I want to be able to talk to people like I do at Celebration about The Last Jedi, where you can like walk up to somebody, or even if you're at wherever, and be like, did you like that second one they did? And I'll be like, yeah, I did. And they'd be like, I hated it. All right, cool. And then you just move on. It's the social media stuff, and if people can like realize how ridiculous it really is, how people engage with it, maybe we can move on. But I just yearn for the pre-December 2017 Star Wars fans online situation, because it really hasn't recovered from that, and I feel like people have chosen sides and really dug their feet in the sand and then applied it to other things like, I'm a Favreau guy, I'm a Kathleen Kennedy guy, when they don't realize that they're all on the same studio.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, you can sort of take some of this stuff in bubbles too. Like, there are periods of times where we're all excited about Mandalorian season 2, you know?
Or
and
Andor.
It seems like, it doesn't seem like very many people are on the like, screw that the director of this show sucks, you know, and it's going to be complete garbage. Like, I feel like there are times when like the community still feels very positively about the next project that's coming up. But it is one of those things, like, I don't know that Last Jedi, and really, like, I don't think anybody's like super negative on Solo either, but like,
I don't either. I don't know why people say that.
Yeah. So it really feels like the only thing in fandom that has been any sort of controversial is 8 and 9.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, if 8 and 9 didn't, if they just
and
delivered, everything would be, well, yeah, true, but I don't really feel like people were like, well, I guess maybe
some
they were
Boba Fett
a little
diehards, I think, got mad.
Yeah,
but
maybe
even Tamara Morrison said he wants to do more Boba Fett stuff, so, you know.
I didn't get to bring it up, and I don't want it to go down a whole thing, but like, I am very curious, like, how influenced fans were by Mark Hamill specifically. Like, Mark Hamill is right in his opinion, and that's totally fine. But just for fun, had he been someone who was like, yes, I get it right from the beginning, and the whole time they were making the movie, they would have turned on him. You think?
Yep.
I don't know, man. It seems, I don't know. I mean,
they care about Luke Skywalker more than Mark Hamill. They would say he got old and didn't. Fans turned on George Lucas. Why wouldn't they turn on Mark Hamill?
They would have said like, oh, he got a paycheck. He's being paid to say this.
George Lucas lost his way. Marshall Lucas was what held it together. He wrote it himself. He was never a good writer. He was a bad director. All that stuff came out
I'm also saying
saying
too, he was saying that stuff leading into The Last Jedi, so people were going into it negatively. had they gone into it like, oh, Luke Skywalker himself, Mark Hamill, totally down on this movie, maybe even walking into the movie, they would have had they wouldn't have already had a wall up.
Maybe he prepared them for what they got, though. Like, if he went in saying, like, oh, wait till you see what Luke does in this movie. This is it. And then they see that, and they're like...
I don't know, man. Well, anyway, it's topic for another day.
Mark Hamill shows up to all the interviews with like a black robe and the green lightsaber. He's like, "Last Jedi, baby. Wait till December 15th. Oh, baby."
I don't know, man. I think influences is very strong. So if you guys agree with me, let me know on Twitter. Like, let's have that discussion. But
if you agree with me, let me know on Twitter.
Well, that's fine.
Or just in the comments.
Yeah,
you don't have to go to Twitter.
Yeah,
that's it for Resistance Report this week. Lacey, what is going on next?
All right, guys, it's time for the Patreon podrace. So there are lots of ways you can support us. You can like this video, comment, subscribe on YouTube, ring the bell for notifications so you don't miss a video. You can follow us on Twitter at RBATSWNN or on Instagram at The Resistance Broadcast. We're also on Facebook and all the audio platforms, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Please leave us a review. It really helps us out. But if you want to support us in more ways, including becoming a part of the TRB community, you can head over to patreon.com/Resistance Broadcast. Starting at just $2 a month, that's it. $2. Not many things you can get for $2 nowadays. You can get us for $2. Extra videos every week.
You get a double cheeseburger for $2.
Or us for $2.
Yeah.
And as you go up in the ranks and your pledge amount, you get more access, including Discord servers and much more. We are revamping the Patreon. That's coming soon. But for now, you're getting all the cool stuff that we already have anyway. This is the part of the show that we let our generals and spice runners take part. We ask them a question. They give us an answer. Before we get to that, we want to thank those people. So thank you to our generals: Carmelo, John Reese, Jetta Rosewater, Frank Grande, Darth Hurricane, Nick Kratz, Christian Morales, Brian Smith, Matt Chitty, Danny, Mike Ramori, Matt Heath, Chris White, Brendan McLaughlin, Count Pepto, Sam Zilke, Sneaky Zebra, and Val Trichkoff. Thank you guys so much. And to our Spice Runners: David Probus, Neil Shaw, Kendall Gelner, Ryan Wara, Dave Hornack, Thomas Hennessy, Andrew Staley, Jeremy Myers, and our new Spice Runner, Michael Fry. Thank you guys so much. We're excited to have you here. This week, we have our buddy from the UK, Matt Chitty. What up, Matt? Matt, don't worry. Your at is going to make an appearance eventually when I figure out where to put him in my background. But he is here. All right, so his question was, this summer's novel, Shadow of the Sith, provided more of Luke Skywalker's story. Would you like more Luke stories filling in the gaps between the films? If so, what medium would you prefer for those stories to be told? This is a great question after what we were just talking about. Take it away, Matt.
Hi. Thanks for this week's question. I really had to think about this one. Obviously, Luke's the main character. I'd love to learn more about the story, about what happened between the films. In terms of the best way to do it, really thought about this. Don't really think animated's the way to go. Obviously, books, great. You can really dive in. I think they've opened the door now with The Mandalorian, and it's going to be a digital Luke. I think you do it as a Disney Plus series. You could even bring in Mark maybe as a Force ghost. I don't know when you'd set it. Almost telling back the story. You could do it that way. But yeah, I think that's probably the best way to do it. I'd love to hear those stories. So yeah, thanks for the question, and see you guys soon. Bye.
Nicely done, Matt. I'm going to be that basic American and say that your accent is wonderful. And you sound so great. John, what'd you think?
I don't know if it translates over there if they all speak that way, but I feel like Matt could say a lot of things and I wouldn't be like offended by them, or I wouldn't feel inclined to argue with him. It's just a very pleasant tone.
He's also just a super pleasant person.
Yeah. Matt, say, next pod race, I'm gonna give you like a really spicy topic.
Ooh.
We'll see what you do with it. No, but yeah, great job. I love seeing the book back there, of course. And I don't know if that was lighting or not, but look a little Sithy back there. But I will say this. You saying animated off the table, I find interesting because my mind went to Mark Hamill does voice animating. He can do like an older Luke voice if they did that. But you're saying go for it and do the deep fake Luke in his own series. That is bold, man. I don't know if they'll ever do that. But I'd watch the hell out of it. So I think that's really, it's just a bold idea. I think that's really cool. So I think that was a great answer because I honestly did not expect that at all. I thought when you started saying like, then this is what then that leaves us with, I thought you were going to say recast. So I think it's interesting you went for what they've been doing with The Mandalorian, just expanding it and letting Luke sort of have his own story. So it's an interesting idea. I know it's a controversial thing for a lot of people, but I think that's a really bold choice. So I dig it. Thanks, man. And I hope I see you at Celebration. You're going to be there, right? Yeah?
Yeah, I can't wait. James?
Yeah, I think that, I don't know if I'm speaking for Matt here, but, with that, if so, what medium would you prefer those stories be told? I think you just kind of took, I think we generally go, well, there's these technological problems, what seems the most realistic, that it seems almost like it could actually happen. But I think Matt is looking at this like, which would you prefer? Genie in a bottle thing? He goes, boom, live action, absolutely, kind of thing. And then a little bit of how could they do that? Well, we've already seen it sort of happen. It is possible. So let's just assume they figure out a way to upgrade the technology and make it even more possible. Yes, that's the one I want. And that totally makes sense to me. I think that's it's not the easy answer, but it's probably the most realistic answer. If you could remove all obstacles and be like, would you prefer Luke Skywalker stories in animation or in live action? They're like, well, live action, that would be the best. That would be the best scenario, of course. So Matt, I think you are exactly on the money on this one. Thank you so much for doing the pod race, adding to our show. That's great. Giving us some good content to talk here on the podcast about. Thank you.
Matt, awesome job. Per usual. You sound wonderful, like I said. Great hair. Loved your answer. Luke is one of the best characters. Big fan of Luke. And I think that I would really love a live action version as well. I think they could do Mark Hamill as his old self on the island, reflecting on young Luke stories where he has flashbacks or something like that. Could be really
Always
cool.
Kick those around with Billy D.
Yeah. I just love Luke Skywalker. I'll never have enough of that character, so I'm all on board. But thank you so much for taking part. We love having you in the community. Like John said, can't wait to see you at Celebration. Hope you're going. But yeah, back to you, John.
All right. Now, I know we're up on an hour, but screw it. More podcasting. We're going to do Ask the Resistance right now.
I've been wondering, what are midichlorians?
All right. So we used to do this way more often. As new stuff is coming out, we'll probably bring it back more because we'll have more topical questions. But we're going to do it right now. And here's a round of Ask the Resistance. You submitted questions. So thank you to everybody who accepted the call for questions and sent stuff in. We really appreciate that. You help make the show more fun and give us different perspectives and things that we don't always think of. So let's kick it off here. One of our Resistance officers on Patreon has Aslam. What's up, buddy?
Hello.
He sent a question. Do you think it would be refreshing or risky if Disney were to create a new series or movie where the main protagonist wasn't a humanoid, but perhaps a droid or an alien of distinct alien features? I think this may have come up on the podcast in the past, but I'm not sure. So because of the sake of time, let's do one question each. So I'll just say which one of you wants to take this one, and if you don't, I'll grab it.
I don't want it.
You don't want it? I'll do it.
Oh, Lacey's doing the nose thing.
I'll do it. This is easy. So here's, I think, if I may be so intrusive here, is this coming because of She-Hulk? Because this is current right now, and we're getting
it's humanoid. That's humanoid.
I know,
saying not
but
humanoid.
I know, but that's still a full CG character that like we're supposed to connect with this, and it's sort of like a Jar Jar situation where it's like, yeah, she looks like a girl, but also it's supposed to be like she's bigger and different, and it's obviously clearly fully animated. I think there's something to that. That's maybe why this is getting brought up. I think yes, they could do it. If they really wanted to go down that route, we bought Groot. We bought Raccoon, Rocket, Grogu. I think that we are definitely at the point where, so long as we feel like we could personally connect with the story or the spirit of a character, the technology is the only obstacle, and we're at a point now where that obstacle is looking lower and lower. That it's very believable that if you make L3 a good character, then characters are going to relate to it and feel bad when that character dies or laugh when they have a funny joke or
Wall-E.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we've definitely done. I mean, in animation, it's no question. But could they do it in live action? And
Right.
I think that hurdle comes down to, can you make a fully CG character believable enough that we're not in Uncanny Valley anymore? I think it's possible. Pass. There you go.
All right. Cool. All right. Lacey, this one is going to you. Blue at Blue Milk Diner. I know you've had thoughts about Old Republic stuff in the past and things you'd like to see. So they're asking, will we ever see the birth of the Jedi and or Sith shown in live action?
Great question, Blue Milk Diner. Thank you for it. I think we're going to get that in The Acolyte. I think we're going to get the Sith side of things from there, whether it be a flashback or a retelling or some type of mention. That's my answer. Acolyte. I almost said alkalite.
The alkaline battery.
Yeah.
Right.
Acolyte.
Alkaline trio.
Yeah.
So via flashbacks. That's a good point. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because even the Vader comic had like, look in this mask and you'll see the past or something.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. I like that.
It could be a holocron.
All right, last one here. What's that?
It could be through a holocron or something.
Yes. True. All right, last one here. Chris Brattel at Chris Brattel. Way to get your handle, Chris, first and foremost. That's the most important thing. So good job.
It's been a while since we said that.
A lot of people are not getting their handles these days.
It's tough.
All right, Chris.
World out there.
Yeah. Chris asked, how would you feel about Gareth Edwards directing the final episode of Andor Season 2? Not good. And not because of Gareth. I feel like that would feel like it was a charity thing or something. I don't know. I don't know that needs to happen because one, Tony Gilroy came in and did heavy rewrites and reshoots for Rogue One, and it wasn't a situation where Gareth is like, let me bring in my friend Tony. Lucasfilm was like, we got to bring in Tony Gilroy to help us out here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's a situation where Tony Gilroy is going to be like, now let me bring in Gareth Edwards to finish my series. Like that's such a weird like yin yang. So that's not really the answer to your question. Like I don't think it will happen. How would I feel about it? A little strange. I think I would just feel a little strange. But let me know what you think, and everyone who asked questions, let us know how you felt about our answers on that, of course, because the discussion's some of the best parts of what we do here, which we're going to do Thursday with our next episode. But before I do that, I just want to thank everybody for listening and watching, being a part of TRB. If you did submit a question, keep them coming. We really appreciate when people do that. It means a lot to us. So keep those coming, and we'll get yours on the show and give you shout outs like we did with these folks here. Make sure you subscribe, like Lacey said, all the preferred platforms. We did have an issue with Apple as of recording this episode. It's still happening with our more recent episode. Hopefully that's fixed. I'm submitting tickets every day to Apple Podcasts, trying to get it fixed. I really hope it's resolved.
This is a great time to download Spotify.
Yeah. But no, yeah. I mean, we are on almost all major audio platforms that you could probably find without being a subscriber of that. So there are other ways if you don't want to look at our faces on YouTube, of course. Yeah. But hopefully, I know a big bulk of our audio listeners do listen via Apple. So Nothing, our hands are tied there. Hopefully it's fixed and permanently fixed. But spread the word of the pod. Star Wars Newsnet for all of your Star Wars news. You can find me on Twitter at Johnny Hoey, writing and editing at StarWarsNewsNet.com, and my movie podcast, Just Like the Movies. We just put out an episode on Wedding Crashers last week, because it's always wedding season, as I found out. James.
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram, both at Myra Trunks.
Lacey.
People can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Lacey Gillerin.
All right, so here's the deal. Thursday, it's our last discussion episode. I know we did a lot of discussing on this episode. We always discuss.
Yeah.
But it's our last vocal discussion episode where we're going to take our swings for the fence and give our final predictions for what we're going to get in Andor. Maybe specifically the first 3 episodes, but mainly season 1. And we're going to have some fun, take some swings, and you're not going to go back and listen to prove us wrong anyway. So we're going to take our shots at it.
And we haven't seen anything, to be completely honest.
Yeah.
We have not seen any of Andor. No, we have
not
not.
seen any of it.
We have not. So be a part of the discussion with us, and it's going to be a good time. But until then, we hope you enjoy your weeks, and we'll see you Thursday morning right here on the Resistance broadcast. See you around, kids.